Elara was just a simple girl from Earth, trained as a medic and sent to faraway planets to help miners, settlers, and explorers. But nothing in her training had prepared her for what she found on the jungle planet of Thraxel 4, where the trees burned blue and the skies hummed with static. She had landed to respond to a distress call, expecting injured workers, maybe a fire or a chemical spill, but instead she found a crash site full of twisted metal and, in the center of it all, a massive creature lying still, its scales cracked, its breathing shallow, and one golden eye watching her carefully as if it were both in pain and afraid. And though her instincts told her to run, her heart made her step forward, clutching her old first aid kit with trembling hands, unsure if bandages or burn gel would mean anything to a beast from another world yet. She knelt beside it anyway, ignoring the heat and smoke and the distant sounds of others fleeing, because she saw something in the creature's eye, something more than an animal, something that spoke of intelligence, sorrow, and maybe even hope. So she opened the kit, used her tools, and worked quickly, pressing gauze into wounds that glowed with strange light and applying gel that steamed on contact with the dragon's skin, her hands moving on their own as if guided by instinct or fate. And as she worked, the creature let out a low, rumbling sound, not a growl, but something almost like a sigh, and slowly, the great chest began to rise and fall more evenly, the glow in its eyes steadied, and a soft pulse of heat passed through the air like a heartbeat, as if the planet itself recognized her courage. She had no idea that others were watching from high above. Cloaked ships hovered, their captains stunned into silence, for this creature was known in ancient records as Rigthar, the last Flame Guardian, a being older than many empires, believed to be dead or lost forever. And here was a human, a young woman with nothing but courage and compassion, saving it not with weapons or science, but with kindness. And soon, the whispers spread from ship to ship, planet to planet, species to species, as Elara packed up her kit, unaware that her actions were already turning into legend. And when the dragon rose the next day, its wings stretching wide, and its voice thundering in 100 languages, it said one word, healer, before flying into the stars, leaving behind a sky that shimmered with color, and the girl who would soon be known across the galaxy as the Holy Healer, not because she asked for it, not because she wanted it, but because in a moment of danger, she chose to care. And that single act changed the fate of stars forever. Elara never dreamed her quiet life would lead to anything great. She was just a young medic from Earth, trained in basic care, always hoping to help others and see more of the galaxy. And when she signed up for the Interplanetary Relief Program, it felt like a small step toward a bigger life. Yet it began so simply: one duffel bag, one standard uniform, and one old first aid kit passed down from her father, a retired army doctor who told her, sometimes small tools can save big lives. So she boarded a shuttle to her first assignment on the outer colony of Thraxel 4, a jungle world where miners often needed medical attention due to rough conditions. And as the shuttle descended through clouds thick with green mist, Elara looked out the window and saw only trees stretching for miles, a place full of mystery and danger. Though her orders seemed routine: treat injured workers at a research outpost and return in 72 hours. Nothing heroic, nothing strange, but the moment she landed, something felt wrong. The air was too hot, the silence too deep, and when she stepped off the ship, the outpost was dark, empty, and broken, with burn marks on the walls and scattered supplies lying in the mud as if people had left in a hurry or worse. And her heart began to race as she tapped her communicator, only to hear static, the channel dead, which meant she was alone, no backup, no contact. Still, she moved forward, driven by duty and curiosity, searching the ruined sites until she found a faint trail of blood leading into the jungle, drops glowing faintly under her scanner. And, despite fear rising in her chest, she followed, pushing past thick vines and strange sounds until she came to a clearing filled with smoke, broken trees, and something large lying on the ground. At first, she thought it was wreckage from a ship, but then it moved, and she froze, her breath caught in her throat, because it was a creature massive, with dark crimson scales, wings folded like shattered sails, and eyes that blinked slowly, as if trying to stay awake. And Elara stepped closer, unsure what she was seeing, realizing it was not a normal animal, not something from this world, but something ancient and powerful, something wounded and dying. And for a long moment, she did nothing but stare, unsure what to do, until she remembered her kit, her training, and her father's words, and without thinking, she dropped to her knees beside the creature and began to work, her hands moving fast, cleaning a wound near its chest where something sharp had pierced through scales like metal. And though her tools were too small and her supplies too few, she worked anyway, speaking softly, her voice shaking, but steady enough to say, "It's going to be okay," as if the dragon could understand, and perhaps it did, because it did not lash out or try to flee. Instead, it watched her, breathing hard, its golden eyes never leaving her face, and the jungle stayed quiet, as if holding its breath too. And with each minute that passed, the creature's breathing became more stable, the glow in its chest less frantic, and Elara felt something shift in the air, as if the planet itself noticed her efforts, but she still had no idea what she had found. No idea that healing this one being would lead to something far bigger than any mission, because hidden in the trees, watchers observed her aliens, soldiers, diplomats, those who knew the legends of the last Flame Guardian, and could not believe that a human, a simple girl with nothing but an old kit and a steady heart, had touched the creature and lived, let alone saved it. And as Elara wiped her brow and whispered, "You're safe now," she felt a warmth spread around her, not from the sun or fire, but from something older, deeper, and she looked up, confused, only to see a strange light above her head and the sound of wings unfolding again, slow but strong. And the dragon rose, not fully healed, but strong enough to stand, and it lowered its head as if in thanks, then took to the skies with a roar that echoed across the land, and Elara stood in silence, alone once more but forever changed, unaware that across the stars, her name was already being spoken in wonder as the beginning of a journey that would lead her into the heart of legend. Elara walked deeper into the jungle of Frexel 4, her boots sinking slightly into the soft mossy ground as strange bird-like creatures cried in the distance, and the humid air clung to her skin like a second layer. She had expected a routine mission, but the silence around her was too heavy, as if the trees were hiding secrets and the wind was warning her to turn back, yet she followed the trail anyway, stepping carefully through broken branches and scorched leaves until she reached a clearing that looked like it had been torn apart by something enormous. Trees had been snapped in half. The ground was blackened, as if fire had danced across it, and in the center lay something that made her stop breathing for a moment, something she could not explain even with all her training and experience. A giant creature with wings folded like torn sails, covered in dark red scales, and its chest slowly rising and falling, as if it clung to life by only a thread. And no fear crawled through her bones. Elara stepped closer, unable to stop herself, her medic instincts kicking in as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing, wondering if it was some alien species no one had catalogued yet. But when she got closer and saw the long neck, the curved horns, and the golden eyes half closed in pain, her heart skipped a beat, because she remembered stories from Earth, tales of dragons, mythical beasts said to breathe fire and guard treasures, and now one was lying in front of her, not in a book, not in a dream, but real, bleeding, and dying. And even though her mind screamed that this was impossible, that this should not exist, she dropped her bag beside it and opened her first aid kit with shaky hands, unsure what good bandages or disinfectant could do against burns the size of shields or wounds that glowed faintly with blue light. But she had to try, because she couldn't just walk away, not when something was suffering and she could help. So she began cleaning a deep gash near its shoulder, using a cloth and her only bottle of cooling gel, whispering to the creature as she worked, not knowing if it understood, but hoping her calm voice would keep it still. And to her surprise, the dragon didn't move, didn't fight, only watched her with tired eyes, its breath slow and uneven, and when she touched its scales, they were warm, almost too warm, like touching a heated engine. But she kept going, wrapping part of the wound in a flexible healing wrap, pressing buttons to activate the nanotech inside, and every minute she worked, the jungle grew quieter, as if even nature itself was watching her. Then a loud crack echoed through the trees and she froze, heart pounding, thinking something else was coming, maybe another creature, or worse, someone dangerous, and she grabbed her scanner, holding it up as it blinked rapidly, showing multiple life forms nearby, moving fast, surrounding the clearing. And for a moment, she was sure she'd made a mistake, that she'd walk away from this, only to be captured or killed. But then the dragon stirred, lifted its head slightly, and let out a low rumble that sent a wave of heat across the ground, and whatever was in the trees stopped moving, just like that, as if they feared the sound or respected it. And Elara looked around, seeing faint shapes in the shadows, too fast to be human, too quiet to be machines, and she realized she wasn't alone, that this dragon wasn't alone, and she was part of something far bigger than she'd ever imagined. But still she stayed, finishing her work, applying the last of her supplies to the creature's neck, and when she finally leaned back, exhausted and drenched in sweat, the dragon blinked slowly and exhaled, a warm breath that smelled of smoke and minerals, then closed its eyes, not in death, but in peace, and Elara sat beside it, gripping her empty kit, her mind spinning, trying to make sense of what just happened, unaware that high above, in orbit around Threxel 4, dozens of ships were recording, transmitting, and analyzing every second of what they had just witnessed. A human, alone, healing the last living creature from an ancient race thought extinct, and somewhere in the darkness, powerful beings began to whisper one name, the girl who touched the flame and lived. Elara stood in the middle of the scorched clearing, her hands shaking, her clothes stained with ash and glowing dragon blood, her mind torn between fear and duty, as the massive creature lay motionless before her, its breath weak, its wounds deep, and its golden eye fixed on her like a silent question. Should she run, or stay and try to help something she did not fully understand, something that could kill her in a second if it chose to move again? And yet as she looked at it, broken and bleeding, she saw not a monster, but something that was simply in pain. And that was the moment when everything inside her changed, because she realized this was not just a creature, it was a life, one more life that deserved a chance. And though the part of her trained in logic screamed to step back, call for help, wait for backup, she knew there was no time, that if she waited, it would die, and she couldn't let that happen, not while she still had breath in her lungs and tools in her hands. So she made the choice to step forward, kneel beside it, and begin working, using her old first aid kit, her hands trembling, but steadying with each movement, as she cleaned the strange wounds and pressed healing foam into cracks between the scales, whispering softly as she worked, though she wasn't sure why. Maybe to calm herself, or maybe because the creature looked like it needed to hear a voice that meant no harm. And as she worked, the air around her grew hotter, not dangerous, but charged, like standing near a sleeping fire that could wake up at any moment. And yet the dragon never moved to stop her, only watched with tired eyes, its breathing slowly becoming less shallow, and Elara kept going, using the last of her bandages, sealing the largest gash with a patch that wasn't meant for skin like this, but somehow held together. And as she finished, something strange happened. A pulse of warm light rose from the dragon's body, soft and golden, like a heartbeat felt through the air, and suddenly, the jungle around them grew quiet, peaceful, as if the trees themselves were exhaling with relief, and Elara sat back, staring at the creature, wondering what she had done. But before she could think further, a low voice echoed in her mind, not out loud, not spoken, but deep inside her, a voice like thunder wrapped in silk, saying, "You have chosen mercy." And she gasped, looking up to see the dragon's eye glowing brighter, not in pain now, but in awareness, as if it truly saw her for the first time. and the meaning of her choice settled in her chest like a weight and a gift all at once, because that moment, that simple decision to help, had set something ancient in motion, something bigger than her, and from the shadows of the forest, unseen eyes watched her. Cloaked observers, ancient beings, distant ships with silent viewers, all bearing witness to the human girl who healed a dragon not with science or orders, but with heart and hands, and without even knowing it, Elara had become part of a legend that would spread across stars, for it was not power or weapons that impressed the galaxy, but the choice to help when no one else would, and in the days to come, that choice would echo through councils, empires, and alien hearts, all remembering the moment when one human girl knelt beside a dying creature and changed the course of everything. The sky above Frexel 4 had begun to shift, turning from dull grey to a strange glowing orange, as if the planet itself was holding its breath, and Elara stood frozen beside the massive creature she had just tried to save, her first aid kit empty, her strength nearly gone, and her thoughts swirling in panic and wonder, because although the dragon had not moved for several minutes, something in the air told her it was not over, not yet, and as the silence stretched to long, she reached out with one shaky hand and touched its warm, cracked scales once more, whispering, "You're going to be all right," not sure if she believed it, but hoping that it mattered. And then, without warning, the ground beneath her feet began to tremble, soft at first, then harder, as if a storm was rising from below instead of above, and the creature's chest heaved in one long, slow breath, its ribs rising like mountains, and then a sound escaped from deep within its throat, not a growl, not a roar, but a long, echoing hum that vibrated through the jungle and made every leaf shake, every bird scatter, and Elara's heart stopped for a moment, and then came the eyes, bright golden, snapping open with sudden fire, glowing like twin stars filled with memories older than Earth itself, and in those eyes she saw not just pain, but knowledge, depth, power, and recognition. The dragon was awake, fully awake, and it remembered her. And though it did not speak, Elara felt something press against her thoughts, a quiet voice in her mind that was not her own, ancient and deep, saying, "You have given life where death had claimed me." And as those words echoed within her, the dragon began to move, slowly lifting its head, spreading its massive wings that dragged wind across the clearing, knocking leaves into the air. And the sight of it rising sent chills down Elara's spine, because it was beautiful and terrifying all at once, a living legend breathing fire again, and high above, invisible ships watched in silence, broadcasting the event to thousands of systems, for the last flame guardian had awakened, a creature believed extinct, lost in the fires of the old war, and now it stood because of a human girl with nothing more than courage and a first aid kit. And as the dragon fully rose, standing tall against the sky, it let out a roar that shook the land, a sound so powerful it carried far beyond the jungle, echoing across continents, across oceans, and into space, and every being who heard it felt the truth. Something great had returned, and it did not come alone, for by its side stood the girl who had made the impossible happen, and Elara, though stunned and overwhelmed, did not run, did not hide, but stood still with wide eyes and a racing heart, and the dragon lowered its massive head toward her, exhaling warm wind that smelled of ash and old stars, and she heard it again, that voice in her mind, "You are known to me now." And then, as if the moment had ended and something new had begun, the dragon took to the air with a rush of wings, firelighting behind it like the trail of a comet, and Elara dropped to her knees, staring up at the sky, knowing the world had changed, not because she had meant to change it, but because she had chosen to help when no one else would, and now the galaxy would remember her name, and the name of the beast who had awakened.